Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sharon Gao Show. The Sharon Gao Show is a space where we'll have conversations with brilliant minds passionate about nutrition, well-being, and healthy living. Transform your health, you can transform your life. Today, our guest is Ishika. Ishika is a spiritual psychologist and a consciousness, health, and well-being coach. So welcome, Ishika. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks
You.
for having me on your show, Sharon.
So our topic today is about the relationship. So when we come to the essence of a relationship, normally it's about a control or it's about empowerment. So I love what you said, like to understand the essence of a relationship is really to become aware of how you are relating with yourself and others. Can you share with us more about this?
Well, let's just start by saying that often we focus on relationships in terms of the outcomes that we want to experience from a relationship. Like, what am I getting from this person? And what do I want from this relationship? And what do they want from me? And what am I giving? And what am I getting? And so a lot of the focus is on the giving and the getting and the outcome aspect of it, rather than on how we are actually relating with other people, or how we're relating with the person concerned, as well as how we're relating with ourselves while we're in relationship. And so the essence, and rather the purpose of being in relationship, is to become more aware of how we relate with ourselves as well as with others as we go through these relationship experiences in our lives. And when we focus on the outcome in relationship of what am I getting and what am I giving, and we automatically start to focus our awareness on the patterns of control. And to say a little more, control is an ego pattern that it's like the ego creates an ideal picture of what life or the world should be like, and then control is what it does to match that picture. And so, in a way, control is also known as the master addiction. And in relationships, when we speak about control, control is what we do to kind of protect ourselves from feeling abandoned or alone, or to protect ourselves from the fear of losing contact with reality.
But I think it's really what you said there at the beginning is really just really the essence, like, because we actually cannot control the outcome, right? We don't really know. No matter how much effort we put in, no matter what kind of expectations we have in a relationship, we don't really know what the outcomes are going to be, right? So it's better start from a place of like, being aware, like how what is a better way to have the relationship with yourself, right? It's the intention. I think it's the most important, right?
Well, yes, like you say, we can't really control how others think. We can't control other people's choices. We can't control the weather. We can't control outer circumstances, the economy. If you bring that in closer, you'll also realize that we can't control our own thoughts. It's like there are thoughts that flow through my mind. There are thoughts that come in through the mind. And well, we can choose to entertain them, or we can choose to let them go and not give them any energy and focus. But we can't control the thoughts that come into our mind. And likewise, when we feel a strong emotion, we can't control. It's an illusion when we believe that we can control our emotions. We can express them, or we can avoid expressing them in a certain situation if it's not appropriate. But we can't control feeling them.
Right.
You see, so to understand that control is, it's like what I said earlier. It's like the mind has a certain ideal picture of how life in the world should be. And then control is what we attempt to do to match the picture of reality and the ideal picture and make it one.
Yes, absolutely. But why do you think that we intended to always like try to control things instead of just participating on or working with ourselves to start with. And like lots of situations like relationship problems starts with like lots of times people are actually very very controlling, right? They are not only trying to control themselves, they are also trying to control their partners in a relationship. Lots of times it causes lots of problems with that kind of behaviors myself.
Yeah, and I genuinely believe that it goes down to the attachment to outcomes. We want a certain outcome. We don't want to feel alone. We don't want to feel lonely. We don't want to be abandoned. And so control is our attempt to keep things familiar and keep things, or rather keep things secure.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at security, it's like, at some point or another, someone's going to leave the relationship, whether it is due to an illness or a disease, whether they transition, whether they're, we grow in different ways through our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be attached to a sense of outer security isn't a long-term.
Yeah, it's want to like we want to get a hold of something, right? Want to feel safe, right? Feel secure, right? The sense of like ownership or sense of like being safe, secure, right? So that's why like it's hard to I guess it's from our animal origin. It's like because we want to feel secure with the surroundings or with people, right?
Yeah, yes, it absolutely comes down to survival. It's like the sense of survival. I'll survive if I'm part of this tribe. If I have this relationship and I have that support externally, then I will survive. But we don't often take into consideration, in that way of thinking, we don't take into consideration that outer circumstances are not in our control. And by outer circumstances, that also includes people outside of us, people that we are in relationship with. And the other paradox of attempting to be in control and controlling the state of our relationship and the state of our being together is that we also place ourselves in a victim stance to these outer circumstances and external people, because we're basing it's like, when they change, then I can be happy. When they give me what I want, or when they show up in the way that makes me feel safe and secure, then I'll be happy. And so we unwittingly put ourselves in a victim position, because now we feel like we're helpless until this other person can do something differently.
Mm-hmm. I really love that part. It's just like it's what people searching for somebody for a relationship, right? Normally they just have all the list of things, expectations that they are looking for. But when we really look down into ourselves, and actually those are the things that we are missing inside, within. So we're actually looking for things that can compensate with what we don't have or what we are short of or feel like, and then we think, okay, only we can only be happy, we can only be in a good relationship if that person comes with those kind of qualities, right?
Yeah.
But we actually start with something that cannot be controlled or cannot be guaranteed at all. Right? Because
well, yes, and even if the other person has those qualities, they're also going to have some other qualities that we may not necessarily want them to have. So, and that may not be compatible with us.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what is the better way you think for a relationship? What is a better way, and what is a better mindset for a healthier relationship?
Well, you see, in my experience, as long as I was placing my power outside of me and in the hands of someone else and in the hands of their choices and their behavior, it made me feel powerless, or like a victim waiting until this person arrived and waiting until they made the first move. Um, and the awareness that we have outer choice as well as inner choice in any situation or relationship can be a game changer. In other words, outer choices would be things like action steps we could take towards a relationship or towards a job situation or our finances or our health. But then the other aspect is that when things occur, for example, if we're not in a committed love relationship right now, or we are in a challenging situation in our job, in our career, and we can't necessarily change those outer circumstances that we've been presented with, we can also become aware that we also have an inner choice. And the inner choice is more attitudinal. It's more to do with choosing an attitude that can support us in our situation, in the challenge that we're experiencing. And it's more about becoming mindful about the direction of our thoughts. Am I worrying? Like, worry is known as negative future fantasy. Am I fantasizing constantly about a negative future? Or am I ruminating about past experiences, regrets, and remorse? And is that assisting me in shifting my situation and shifting out of a certain challenge right now? Or is it actually keeping me stuck in it? So to become aware that we don't just have outer choices, but we also have inner ones, and to be able to take responsibility for ourselves on the physical level, but also on the mental and the emotional level. It's like to become responsible for my thoughts, for my emotions, and my actions. And then to extend the same courtesy to the other person or the other people concerned, where they can then learn to become responsible for their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions, can bring a beautiful balance and a lot of empowerment, and can help let go of a lot of the conflicts that we often experience in relationship, where we are waiting for someone else to make us feel better and holding them responsible for our inner states, inner state of being.
I think that's really beautiful. It's really very important just to start with ourselves, and because relationship, as we said in the beginning, relationships are two things, right? A relationship with ourselves and the relationships with other people, right? So uh, because we cannot really control what other people are going to behave or what other people are their state of mind or their things. And I think it's really the best we start with ourselves, and also start within, right? So that's the best approach, probably.
Yeah, and also, to have the awareness that our cultural conditioning, we've been conditioned by culture to buy into the misbelief that I'm responsible for my spouse and my
Mm,
spouse is responsible for me.
mm,
Um, and so what happens with that is that we then buy into the misbelief that this person is responsible for my happiness. And
mm.
if only happiness and fulfillment were outer experiences, was an outer um, criteria, then that could be possible. Except these are inner states of being. It's a state of the mind, it's a state of the heart.
Mhm.
And so someone outside of us just can't have that responsibility because they don't have power there.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's say when we talk about the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with other people, can you share with us like some tips? Because I think it's easy to say that, okay, you know what, especially when you are in a relationship, it's kind of because you have emotions involved, and it's easy to say, okay, I just work on myself, and everything else will be good. But actually, it takes lots of practice and lots of, the right mindset. And can you share with us some tips, like what kind of things we can actually do to help ourselves in terms of like have a better relationship with ourselves, and also what kind of things that we can practice in terms of for a better empowering relationship with our partners or our friends or family.
Sure. I mean, the the one that comes to the top of my mind right now is that, so we've all become masters of correcting ourselves, and we're masters of identifying where we've gone wrong and where we can, how we can do things better, and how our partner can be better, and that kind of thing. And so one of the ways to shift from the blame and the complaining mentality, because the thing is, the more we focus on how we can be better, even though that is meant to make us improve and be better human beings and connect in a better way, it can also have a reverse effect where we find that we're constantly correcting, criticizing, and um, not really being able to connect with the sense of fulfillment and contentment for what is right now. And it can place us in a way outside of the present moment and rather in the future, in a sense, chasing something that we're not today.
Mm-hmm.
And so prizing ourselves is a great way to start to recognize and to start to acknowledge the things that we're doing right, the things that I've done well today for myself or in relationship or in my work. And the same with our relationships. It's like start to focus on what they did right and what's going well, and acknowledge that and prize that from the authenticity and from a heartfelt space. Because it's like, and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's like what you focus on focuses back into us. It's like what we lend our energy to expands. And so if we can shift our awareness to all the things that are going well for us, that's what we'll be more in the experience of.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is really a great tip. Is like it's not only about the relationship, right? It's about everything actually going our life, every day. It's like really what kind of attitude we have, what kind of mindset, and we have towards the things. Like if we start with things negative and then just everything else, you just attract all the similar kind of energies, right? And the things you can just go probably worse, right? Because it makes things more difficult. But if you start with something positive, I love what you said about like you praise others and just say, even like a affirmation of the things, the efforts that you have made for today, right? Things that you have done right. Things are going great instead of what's going wrong, what could be possibly going wrong. I think that's the worst part, is like we just think about things that not even happened, right? It's like we just have all this kind of crazy thoughts, like, oh, this could go wrong. Like we just think about things that lots of times they are not real, they not even happened, but we already started worrying about it. We already started just create all this kind of very challenging and negative kind of thoughts, and
Yeah.
the result are not going to be great because you
Yep.
something not a great way. Yeah.
And that's why worry is known as negative future fantasy. So if you're gonna fantasize, you might as well fantasize about a positive future. Why would we fantasize about negative stuff?
Yeah. So let's say if somebody is going through some problems in a relationship, like feel really discouraged, like depressed, like just not knowing what's going to happen, just what they can do really to change that around, or what kind of things they can do actually to help them feel better or to actually help the relationship.
Yeah. Well, I love your question, because what you're really talking about is uncertainty. It's like when someone's going through uncertainty, and the thing to acknowledge here is that uncertainty is a part of our everyday life experience. Even if we've been in a job for 20 years, even if we've been in relationship for 5 or 10 or 15 or more number of years, um, there is still a factor of an uncertainty um, in every regard. And so it then poses the question of what is my relationship with uncertainty, or rather, what is my relationship with myself, or how can I relate with myself as I move through the experience of uncertainty. That is the issue. So it's not the uncertainty that is the issue, because that's a
Mhm.
given, because we all face uncertainty in some way all
Yeah.
the time. But it's more how I relate with myself as I go through uncertainty or uncertain times.
Mhm.
That is where we have power. Again, it goes back to, well, what are the inner and outer choices that I'm making right now that is perpetuating a feeling of uncertainty, and that is perpetuating me being insecure or unsteady in myself, versus what choices can I make, whether they are outer action steps or inner choices about choosing an attitude that's going to support me while I go through this life challenge. Also being aware of what is the nature and direction of my thoughts, what is the nature of my self talk. So these are areas that we can become more aware of the choices that we've been making. And if those choices are actually supporting us in our experience of whatever that uncertainty is or challenge is, and what choices can I make that are going to make me feel more steady, center me more in my integrity, um, bring in more clarity, more peace, so that I can um, connect with my intuitive guidance and take next steps. How can I take better care of myself while I go through this situation, so that I can be alert and I can take inspired action as I'm being guided.
Mhm.
So always it's about the outer choices that we're making and the inner choices that we've been making, and whether these are keeping us stuck in negative feeling or negative experiences, versus how can I move and make different choices, and conducting these choices as an experiment to see if it shifts that uncertainty, if it shifts me into feeling more trusting, into having more faith, into wanting to connect with others, wanting to ask for help.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's very important. Is like I love what you mentioned about really you just work on yourself, right? Because lots of times I think we are going through these difficulties by because of our past. We bring in the experience that happened in the past, and then we kind of add this to what to the difficulties we are experiencing right now, and it makes the situation even worse and more challenging. And well, it's really true, like while we are going through the uncertainties and we just really don't know, and it's kind of very confusing. And I think it's really great that you focus on, you really look in, right, really focus on your self-care, self-love, and help yourself to go through this challenge. And I think it also resonates with me because I'm I practice Buddhism, and Chinese
Mm.
philosopher called Lao Tzu, and his philosophy is really just you know not to forcing things, like the whole nature our life has its own way to unfold itself, just let things flow, and it will has its own way to solve its problems and to express itself, just not to forcing anything, and just be patient. And I think while you are going through that, being patient, and then I think it's better experience, instead of like really suffering and get really involved into this all craziness of suffer.
Well, absolutely. And to that, I just add that, you see, oftentimes we mistake patience as passivity. It's like, oh, time will tell, and just be patient. And oftentimes that can um, agitate the mind, and it can also create more uncertainty or more unsettlement, because we feel like, oh well, shouldn't I be doing something? shift this. And like, what do you mean patience? Shall I just sit back? And is that passivity? And it's 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 more about learning to hold with yourself while you're going through a challenging or an uncertain time. It's like so it's not passive, it's actually active. It's more an inner action of, and in spiritual psychology, it's so sweetly put. It's a principle that we that is said is like, it's not the issue that is the issue, it's how you relate with yourself while going through the issue that is the issue.
That's absolutely true. It's really true. It's really about everything that how we encounter with things in our life. It's really about everything, right? It's really not about the things. It's really about our interactions with the things
Yeah,
that can create really different outcomes. Yeah, yeah, I really.
absolutely. And becoming aware that even when we don't have, even when we can't change an outer situation or circumstance, we still have an inner choice. We can choose our attitude, we can choose our thoughts, the quality of our thoughts, we can choose um, the quality of our inner experience and our self talk. And we can use that outer experience, as challenging as it might be, as a way to um, create a loving, gentle, kind, compassionate relationship with ourselves.
That's really beautifully said. Thank you so much. So do you actually do some kind of a spiritual practice when it comes to like how to help yourself, if you are going through such challenges,
Oh, I mean, that would be an understatement to ask if I have a spiritual practice, because from my training in spiritual psychology, there are many principles and practices, and it's all about integrating these practices into everyday life circumstances and using all of life's experiences for my growth, for my upliftment, for my soul's evolution. So it's like there's another principle, and we say you are a divine being having and using a human experience for your conscious awakening and your soul's evolution. And so one of the ways in which to activate these spiritual and psychological muscles is to use outer experiences as a reflection of inner reality. So it's like the things that are going on outside of us in our outer relationships, in our experiences with our finances, with physical world reality, with our physical body and health, um, reflect to us things that are happening on the inner levels in terms of our thoughts, our emotions, the state of our spirit, how we're feeling. Is there some grief? Is there what is it that's being triggered in us through these outer experiences? And so using all of physical world reality as a mirror that's reflecting back to us what is truly going on inside is a spiritual practice. Of
how
course,
how do you actually do that? How do I mean, how do you actually practice your theories?
how do you practice your
Yeah, those are theory. I mean, I love all the ideas and all the things you just said. It's really beautiful. I mean, how do we actually practice that? Like,
well, you it's like to use everything that you're experiencing on the outside as a feedback mechanism.
mm-hmm,
It's like, for example, if you come across, or if something disturbs your peace on the outside, it's like you meet someone and say you experience road rage, and that triggers a disturbance inside of you because you're shocked and you're like, how can this person be in this way? And that was reckless. And you catch yourself having this triggered experience. You can utilize that as a mirror to go within and understand, okay, where is it inside of me that I've been experiencing myself as reckless, or where I've been making certain reckless choices, or that I've been judging myself as reckless, or judging others in my life or my life experience as reckless. And then um, using that opportunity as a way to heal the deeper misunderstandings, judgments, and difficult experiences, if
So
that
it's
makes
like,
sense.
yeah, so it's like you are having a self-talk, right? Like, when have you have a self-talk with yourself, kind of like help yourself to understand the challenges, and is that how it works?
Well, here's the thing. It's so interesting that you mentioned that it's like having a self-talk. It's actually becoming more aware, or opening up to the awareness that we're constantly in a conversation with the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like the outer universe is really a reflection of our inner universe. And we're constantly in a conversation with the universe. And everything and everyone that's being brought forward into our awareness is reflecting to us a part of us and how we've been relating with ourselves.
Yeah. I love that.
And to sort of use this principle as a way to explore the deeper levels in our own consciousness, the deeper levels in our thoughts and our emotions, the things that are getting triggered by the present moment circumstance, but what is getting triggered from the past, perhaps.
I think it's like, it's absolutely, it's all this connected. It's very important to have this kind of realizations, especially when we're going through the challenges and difficulties. But I think what are the actual things that you can suggest us can do? For example, some people maybe do meditation, or some people maybe go physical exercise, or some kind of things that can help them to actually practice these things that you just talked about.
Well, there are many, I mean, we can use anything as a spiritual practice. And by that, what I mean is, it's like the intention with which we do something is key. So, for example, if I decide to go for a power walk and I set the intention that I'd like to release stress and anxiety, or I'd like to release a certain emotion that I know I've been feeling and that's been overwhelming me in the day. And so I can use the power walk and I can set my intention to utilize that exercise as a way to shift the energy and shift myself. You can use chanting as a way to ground a certain quality of presence in our being. For example, you can use chanting the word peace, or chanting the word love, or chanting well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
affirmation, chatting.
And so as you chant, you can chant out loud or you can chant within. um, it activates those qualities in consciousness,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it can then assist. It's like it's bringing those qualities of awareness to the forefront, and allowing the thoughts and the emotions and all that stimulation on the level of the mind to take a back seat. So it's not about controlling our thoughts and emotions. It's rather allowing awareness to come up front and let the mind take a back seat.
I love that. That's just it's really beautifully said, because a lot of time, because actually lots of times when we are experiencing difficult emotions, we kind of like want to avoid those things, right? We
Yep.
just kind of like put those emotions in a box and pack away, store it, and we just don't want to think about those things. We don't want to touch it. We just kind of like, okay, I'm okay now because it's there, it's in the storage room, but actually it will come back, right? It's not, we cannot really like avoid them in this way, because it will come back constantly. And
Well, I'd just say from my own experience, it's like we're either going to have an explosion or we're going to have an implosion.
right.
So it's like So we're better off, and we're further ahead in our evolution as we can learn ways in which to constructively express our emotions and express our thoughts in an environment that is neutral and loving, and that is not biased or judgmental, and that feels safe, which is why counseling sessions can be a great avenue. There are other tools that you can use personally that I teach clients as well, where you can express your thoughts and your emotions and be witness to them, and learn to create a safe and neutral environment for yourself in which to express yourself. Because it's only when we express our perceptions and our experiences to its fullest extent that we can then move to our next level of potential, and we can access more clarity and more wisdom from those experiences. But up until we've had that full experience and allowed ourselves that full experience within ourselves, we'll be in it. We'll be stuck in on that level and not be able to move into our next level of growth and understanding and compassion and acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually so important because lots of us actually we are still hunted by the bad things like happened with our childhood even, right? So because only because we just we are not used to confront those feelings or really practicing to, like you said, bring them, and really deal with them in a positive way. And also, I think you were talking about mindset, like the intention. You were talking about the intention is the first, the most
Yes.
thing. That's very true. But also, I think we are wired like thinking about only emotions like happiness, like those things are good. We are kind of like conditioned to think emotions like anger, emotions like sadness, emotions like other uncomfortable feelings like disappointment are bad. So while we were kids, our parents always just like, oh, if we are dealing with some not very pleasant emotions, our parents try to make us feel good, try to take us away from those
Mm-hmm.
things and not addressing those things at all, and not telling us, what, those emotions are just emotions. They are normal. Just same as the emotions for happiness. Same thing. It's okay, and it's part of life. It's not like something that we just look at those things are those things like enemies or something that we should not touch. We just want to run away from those, but we can't, right? Eventually, because we are actually experiencing all these emotions all the time. So we have to learn to be okay with those emotions, right? And then just deal with those emotions in a rational way, in a regular, normal way. And then those things won't be accumulated in a negative way to come, like you said, to explode one day.
To explode or to implode. And for me, the game changer was to understand that our emotions are our thoughts felt physiologically in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, if you can ride back the emotion to the thoughts that we had that created that emotion in the first place, again, that brings us much ahead of the game in our own psyche, where then we can work through those thoughts that created those emotional responses in the first place, and learn to then kind of complete those emotions in ourselves, rather than, like you said, rather than allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed by them, and rather than having them like carrying them through all of our life's experiences and having them sort of ooze out into every situation.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is really important. If we can, right, really go back to the thoughts, really, and understand that it's very deep for me. It's how those emotions started with, right? Lots of times, yeah, it has to do with the thoughts.
Yeah, and what you stated is absolutely accurate. Most of us um, weren't. It's like a lot of times our caretakers, our guardians, our parents were not themselves in a position to teach us how to move through our experiences, our challenging inner challenging experiences, our thoughts and our emotions, in a way that we could complete them in that moment. And so oftentimes we've learned to distract, like we distract children from the emotion that they're having. And even in our adult life, we realize that oftentimes we tend to distract ourselves away from our thoughts and our emotions that feel difficult or uncomfortable or inconvenient.
I
And
think a
so
lot of
we
time,
learn ways to distract ourselves.
absolutely, like lots of times. Like I think
Yeah.
it's probably one of the most uncomfortable things that the people. That's why we have eating disorders, right? That's why people
Yeah.
are obese, or because
Or binge watching Netflix,
binge watching. Or say, oh, you invite friends, oh, come over for a party. But
Yeah.
the real problem is they don't want to deal with uncomfortable things, emotions or uncomfortable things that happen in life. They just try to reach out to other things and accomplish.
Yeah, and it's not even that we don't want to. It's oftentimes we don't know how.
And we are not capable of. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is oftentimes we look to our partners, our spouse, and these relationships that we have in our lives, so that in a way that they will somehow make us feel better.
Mm-hmm.
You see, this is like sort of bringing our conversation full circle, where we're talking about control versus empowerment in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on the outcome in relationship, and um, how to actually take full responsibility for our inner experiences and our outer actions, rather than expecting others, or making or holding others responsible and accountable for our inner experiences, and then feeling like the victim and feeling powerless, and then attempting to control the situation and the relationship so that we don't feel lonely and we don't feel abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's kind of.
Example, if somebody is because we're talking about a relationship, I just want to say how you can walk, walk us through this whole process. Like, for example, if somebody is in a relationship as not knowing how it's going to be, right? Not knowing, like it's going through some challenges and don't know how the result or what's the outcome going to be, and feel like really like we discussed earlier, like uncertain, upset and sad and sad. And what do you suggest that the person can do in that kind of situation?
Well, based on the conversation we're having, um, it would be important to point out, like oftentimes we learn ways to. It's like we learn ways to keep people in relationship with us. One of those patterns is known as people pleasing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if I do things that my partner likes and desires, then they'll stay and they won't leave, and I'll not be alone and I won't be abandoned. And when you talk about uncertainty in relationships, that is a reality. And so um, I think the best way to be of service in any relationship with someone as well as to ourselves is to call ourselves forward into our authenticity and honesty with ourselves, to be honest and authentic with ourselves about what's working and what's not working, and what feels balanced and what doesn't feel balanced. And when we can be clear and honest with ourselves, we can also be clear and honest with the person concerned. And this could be a love relationship, it could be a parent child relationship, it could be a work relationship, it could be a professional relationship with a client. So this is in all relationships. The definition, or to understand intimacy in relationships, is to understand that it means honest, caring, sharing. It's like if I can be honest and if I can share what's true for me in a caring manner, with an attitude of mutual care and kindness, that's the best shot any of us have to have long-term committed loving relationships, or long-term committed graceful professional relationships in our lives.
I
That's the
love,
best shot that we have at it.
yeah, I love that. Like being honest. I think that's super, super important, right? And then they're caring and sharing. I think,
Sharing,
yeah,
honest, caring, sharing. See, that's intimacy. That's building and deepening in the intimacy of any relationship, because that then provides the safe neutral ground in which I can be honest and upfront about my limitations as well as my desires, and it's mutual, so it allows and makes space for the other person or the other people concerned to share likewise. And so whatever it is, whatever relationship that is, it's built on a solid foundation. And it's not a given that people are going to stay in relationship for all of life. It's like, the marriage vows that we take, till death do us part, and then of course everyone's like separating, getting divorced and having issues, and there are addictions and there are all sorts of other complications that we then face, challenges that we face with ourselves, with our partners, even at work and different, even in friendships. And so it's not a given, like this idea of security that everything's going to remain the same and everything's going to be familiar, and if it's not, and if it changes, then I'll be betrayed. It's
not real.
it's a figment of our, it's made up, it's what the mind believes, it's what the ego mind would want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not real.
It's not real, unfortunately, right? But I think that, like, I love what you said. The best shot is being honest with yourself and with each other, and it comes from a place of caring and sharing. I think, yeah.
Yes, because well, a lot of people that they think they're being honest, but they're being ruthless and blunt and aggressive. And honesty is never a one-way street. It's like, sometimes people will come in and say, well, this is my honest opinion, and then off we go. But to understand that honest, caring, sharing means also creating that space for both parties or all parties involved to share openly and honestly, where their challenges as well as their preferences, and then taking that to the next step. So it is about having a two-way dialogue. It's about making clear agreements and then keeping them.
And also knowing that nothing is going to be guaranteed, and that there is always
uncertainty.
Things always will change, and the only thing that is not going to change is things going to change. Yeah, I think.
Yes, and having said that, the relationship that we can build with ourselves in this lifetime is something that is forever, in the sense that, cultivating self-trust, cultivating that I will show up for myself no matter what, and through it all, that I will love myself unconditionally, no matter what the results or the outcomes might be on the goal line of life. See, that's about that kind of relationship, that self-relationship, because then every other relationship and friendship or situation I go into, I take that self-relationship with me. That's for life.
I love that. That's beautiful. Really, really. I think that's probably really the best we can do is, come from, the relationship you build with yourself, right? And they're bringing this to the other relationships or everyday life, and show up every day and show up the best you can. I think that's wonderful. It's so beautiful. Oh my God, this is so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing with us all your. It's very philosophical. It's so deep. I love it. I just enjoyed everything. Thank you so
It's
much.
also very practical. These are all things that we can practice, like the power of our intention before going into a meeting or before having an exercise regime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
We should keep talking about this.
We will. We
Yeah,
will.
but
Thank you for having me.
we will do another talk soon, and I just love on the conversations and things you shared with us. So, if people want to follow you and how they can find you on social media.
Well, they can follow me on Instagram. My account is to be bliss by Ishika, and they can email me at ishika@tobeblissful.com. And I believe you'll share that in the bio. Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.